Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Hard Truth. Thank you so much for watching. Hey, it's fall now. This is the time to be in awe of nature, how the leaves change color and fall from the trees, and a chill creeps into the air. It's almost like God is creating a beautiful new backdrop. It's unfolding even when painful things are going on in our lives, and we don't want to miss that. So now about the Idaho 4 case, I want to clear up some misconceptions that I feel really stem from drifting away from the truth. The truth is hard, y'all. But if you want the seasons to continue to change in your life, some of these terrible seasons, I know you want those to pass and go on about their business, right? Well, then the truth is needful, okay? Well, let's get started. Grab that coffee or a nice hot cup of tea as we begin our story. The first misconception is about the speedy trial. So far, about 347 people have taken the survey, and 65% believe that the reason the defense waived the speedy trial is because the prosecution hasn't turned over all of the evidence that they are required to turn over. And so I guess the defense cannot properly prepare for trial, so to speak. The truth of the matter is, Brian and Ann Taylor waived the speedy trial because Brian Koberger does not have an alibi. Okay? If Brian Koberger had an alibi, he would not be in jail right now. And even if he was in jail, he would at least have a bond. Once they arrested him, they would have had to let him out on bond, and they would be preparing his case while he's at home. The reason he's still in jail and they waived the speedy trial instead of just jumping in and going for broke is because he doesn't have an alibi. He said he was driving around, and that's just not going to get it. And this has nothing to do with whether he's guilty or innocent. I'm not saying this to say he's guilty. I'm not saying this to say he's innocent. I'm saying that he's charged with a quadruple murder and he can't prove where he was. It doesn't matter where the prosecution says he was. Even if the prosecution says they have no idea where he was, he would still have to provide an alibi, to dispute that he was at the scene of the crime during the time that these crimes occurred. So he doesn't have that. And so it's going to be an uphill battle for Ann Taylor to prove his innocence if she doesn't really take this step by step. And so I don't want to give the impression, just by the choices that I gave from this survey, that I believe the prosecution's shenanigans have some part in Brian Koberger waiving his speedy trial, because I do not. I believe that the speedy trial was waived and Brian Koberger could be in jail for 4 or 5 years waiting to go to trial because he doesn't have an alibi, and therefore he can't get a bond, and therefore if he doesn't tread lightly during the trial, whether he's guilty or innocent, he could be convicted because he cannot prove where he was. The second misconception is that prosecutorial misconduct equals innocence. If I had to vote whether Brian Koberger is guilty or innocent today, right now, I would vote that he's innocent, because I don't believe the prosecution has presented sufficient hard evidence of his guilt. In other words, I don't believe Koberger is receiving due process, something every American is entitled to during legal proceedings. A murder case can be thrown out just because an officer didn't read the defendant his Miranda rights, you know? So the prosecution's shenanigans do not make Brian Koberger innocent. They just mean he's being denied his right to due process. There's a massive difference between the two. The third misconception that I would like to talk about is the misconception that the defense represents the client. The defense attorney, the public defender, that is, works for the state just like the prosecutor. And how many times have we seen where the defense attorney If they don't feel that they can win the case for the defendant, will advise the defendant to take a plea deal. Okay? That's not to say that the defendant is innocent or guilty. That decision is based solely on the defense attorney's personal opinion of whether they can win the case for the client or not. Okay, so that has nothing to do with the client's best interest. It all has to do with, well, the defense attorney doesn't want to go to trial and lose and have a loss on their record, and also spending taxpayers' money for a long, drawn out trial that they feel is baseless or useless. Okay, because remember, you're not paying the public defender, the taxpayers are. And so, if they don't feel that they can, that you can win with what you're giving them, you know, should they spend the taxpayers' money to sit there and call witness after witness on your behalf? Absolutely not. So a lot of things play into whose interest the the defense attorney is, representing. It depends. And so this is also a misconception that the public defender is representing the best interest of the client or representing the client. No, they're representing the state. They're spending the state's money and trying to help get you processed and out of there because you don't have your own attorney. That's what that is. The fourth misconception is that it will all come out at trial. If I had a dime for every time somebody said, wait for the trial, and the prosecution has more evidence we haven't seen yet, as I just said, time is money. If the DNA on the sheet didn't send Koberger running to sign a plea deal, well, then what will? What evidence could the prosecution present that would be more significant than DNA? The only thing we don't have at this point is a live witness testimony and the murder weapon. And that's exactly what the prosecution is working on right now. What have you heard in the latest news over the past week or two? DM and BF were in the house texting each other, which equals we have witnesses, and the prosecution is demanding Koberger search and purchase histories for Amazon looking for a knife. All right? If you believe it's going to get any deeper than that, then well, we'll see. I just want to make sure that we're walking in the truth as much as possible while we're investigating this case, while we're following the news and all of this leaked information. Okay? Just remember, you have to lie to yourself first before you lie to somebody else. All right? What do you think about this one?